Hi there, this is your instructor Firdaus Shahri. Today we are going to discuss about basics of organization strategy. So let's get started. The contents are the sustainable competitive advantage, strategy making process, corporate level strategies, BCG matrix, commonly called the Boston Consulting Group, industry level strategies, and firm level strategies. So what is a competitive advantage? Providing greater value for customers than the competitors can. Or we may say these are the competitive advantages that the other companies have tried unsuccessfully to duplicate or have for the moment stop buying to duplicate. So we can say a competitive advantages are those that other organizations, the rival organizations, your competitors do not have. So that is your sustainable competitive advantage. Resources are the assets, the capabilities, the employee time, the information, knowledge that organization improve its effectiveness and efficiency. And they can create sustainable competitive advantage and fulfill the organization goals. So we can say that the sustainable competitive advantage, they are the valuable resources that allows the organization to improve their efficiencies and effectiveness. The rare resources are those that are not controlled or possessed by many competing firms. These resources are very limited. So only a few organizations, they are lucky to have those resources. So we may say that that these resources, they are very limited or they are very rare. Imperfectly imitable resources, they are impossible or they are extremely costly or difficult for other firms to duplicate. A small oil refinery cannot compete the giant oil refineries. For example, another example may be the fast food restaurants, say KFC, McDonald's. They have the outlets worldwide. So a small local brand or pizza or a burger cannot compete with these world chain because they have the unlimited resources. Non-substitutable resources, they produce value or comparative advantages that has no equivalent substitutable replacements. So previously we used to only run our cars on diesel and petrol, but nowadays we have the hybrid cars or we have the electric cars. But still, the electric cars, they are very expensive, so they are not very famous in the countries where the economies are weak. But still, there are some substitutes available. Now, there are three steps of strategy making processes. So we start with number one, that is assessing the need for strategic change. Step number two is conducting a situational analysis. And step number three is they choose strategic alternatives. So what is number one, assessing the need for strategic change? It says avoid comparative inertia. So what is it? It is a reluctance to change strategies or comparative practices that have been successful in the past. So if the organization, they are reluctant to accept a change, so they will definitely going to have a bad performances. Determining the need for change may seem easy to do, but it is not. And the strategic dynamism is a discrepancy between the company's intended strategy and the strategy actions managers take when implementing that strategy. So what is SWOT analysis? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Every organization, they have the strengths, they have the weaknesses, they have the opportunities and threats. Now, when we discuss about strengths and weaknesses, they are considered as the internal elements. And the opportunities and the threats, they are considered the external elements. As per the many scholars, they recommend that the SWOT analysis, where the strengths and weaknesses are the internal, they could be easily controlled by the organization. Or we may say that the strengths and weaknesses, because they are internal elements, so organization, they can control the internal elements. Whereas the opportunities and the threats, they are the external elements. So it is very difficult and hard for the organization to control the external elements. Now, what are the distinctive competencies what the company can make, do, or perform better than its competitors? So we may say the distinctive competencies are those that your rivals, your competitors, or other organizations, they don't have those kind of competencies that your organization have. Core capabilities are the internal decision-making routines, problem-solving processes, and the organization culture that determine how efficiently input can be turned into output. Now, the strategy group, these are the companies within the organization that top managers, they choose to compare, evaluate, and benchmark threats and opportunities. Now, number two is the situational analysis. So, what are the situation analysis? Now we have the core firms. So, what are the core firms? They are the central companies in a strategy group. And under those core firms, we have the secondary firms. So, secondary firms are the strategy groups that follow the strategies of the core firms, but somewhat different from those of the core firm. And then we have the transient firms, the firms in the strategic group, whose strategies are changing from one strategy position to another. So they keep changing their strategies. And that's why we say they are the transient firm. They are in the transit area. Shadow strategy task force, these are the committees within a company that analyzes the company's own weaknesses, and they determine how the competitors could exploit them to have the competitive advantage. The strategic reference points are the target managers use to measure whether the firm has developed the core capabilities it needs to achieve to have a sustainable competitive. So number three are the corporate level strategies. So what are these? The overall organizational strategy that addresses the questions: what businesses are we in, or should we be? In other words, are we in the right kind of business? Portfolio strategy, it contains a diversification which reduces the risk by buying the variety of items or stocks, so that the failure of one stock or one business does not doom the entire portfolio. Now we can have the best example of the Samsung of Korea. The Samsung of Korea, they deal in computer memory chip, computers, telecommunication, they deal with the TV picture tubes, they also deal with the glass bulb, heavy machinery, they deal with the shipbuilding, construction, they also deal with the airplane engineering manufacturing. The Samsung is in fiber optics. They also manufacture the semiconductor. They engage in chemicals. They are engaged. They also provide the financial services, insurance, credit cards, and the trust organization. So we can say that Samsung, the company, the Korean firm, they have the diversified portfolio. Acquisition is what? The purchase of other company by another company. If the organization, they have the competitors, the giant organization, they may purchase the other smaller and smaller organizations. So we say they have acquired that organization. And there are many examples in the history of acquisitions. Unrelated diversification are those creating and acquiring companies in completely unrelated businesses. So that could be, the Samsung could be the best example here. Now this is called Boston Consulting Matrix that was passed in 1968, almost 56 years back. So what is the Boston Consulting firm? So what they have done now, that was given by the Boston Consulting Groups, and there are 4 stages. Now we can have the stars, we have the cash cows, we have the question marks, and then we have the dog. So what are the BCG matrix? Now, let me tell you the brief history of the BCG matrix, or so-called the Boston Consulting Matrix. Now, in 1968, the BCG introduced the growth share matrix, that's so-called the BCG matrix, and it is being taught in many business schools around the world. And the BCG matrix group, the BCG, they have the 3,000 consultants worldwide, and they have different offices, and they operate in different 37 countries. So what is so special about the Boston Consulting Group matrix? Stars, that is considered to be the most prominent location area that organization must be. What are the stars? Stars are the companies with a large market share of fast growing market. For example, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and Nestle. Okay. Question mark or problem children are company with a small share of fast growing market. In other words, the market is growing, but the market share is low. So that's why we call it as question mark. Cash cows are those organizations, those companies that with a large share of slow growing market, they already have reached to the saturation point where more growth is very hard, but although they have a big market share. A dog matrix, that is the most dangerous, or we can say this is called the no man's land area, where the organization should not be there at any cost. Organizations that lie at this area, this region, low dog, it means they are in highly risky situation. And what are they doing? The companies with a small share of slow growing markets. The market share is very slow, and the market is not growing. So they have to take corrective actions so they can switch back to cash cow, or if they put more efforts, so they can switch from dog to stars. Now we are going to discuss about 5 industry strategies, so-called Porter 5 industry forces. So here in the middle, we have industry rivalry. Here we have the supplier review, the threat of subordinates, we have buyer review, and then we have threats of entrants. So what is Porter 5 industry forces? A corporate strategy that addresses the question, how should we compete in the industry? What are the characteristics of rivalry? Now, we all know rivalry means your competitors, organizations that are in a similar business as yours. So it is what? A measure of the intensity of the competitive behavior between companies in an industry. In other words, we try to determine how strong are our rivals, how strong are our competitors. So that is called characteristics of rivalry. Then we have the threat of new entrants, a measure of the degree to which barriers to entry make it easy or difficult for new companies to get started in an industry. Now, it is always very hard for the new organization to come into the market because there are so many barriers. There are so many paperwork. Organizations, they need to get approvals and to see from the governments. So there are always barriers for the new entrants. But how many barriers, how difficult these barriers are, we need to identify. And then we have the threat of subordinate products or services. It is a measure of the ease with which the customers can find substitute products. Do we have substitute products now? Can I say that the coffee is a substitute of a Coca-Cola or a 7-Up? It depends upon the taste of the consumer. So then we have the bargaining power of the suppliers, that how strong are your suppliers. It is a measure of the influence that suppliers of the parts, the material, the service to farms in an industry have on the prices of these inputs. I already gave you examples of the Saudi Arabia, the oil refinery. This is the biggest in Saudi Arabia. They are so big that they control the oil prices around the world, and they supply worldwide. And then we have the bargaining power of the buyers. In other words, the buyers, they are very strong. They control the suppliers. So it is a measure of the influence that customers have on the firm's prices. Now, I've given you an example of the US Airlines. The Lufthansa Airlines, the Emirates, the Qatar Airways, they are so giant that they control the supplies. And then we have the firm level strategy. We have a firm A, and then we have a firm B, and there is a response. So what is it? Now, it is a corporate strategy that addresses the question, how should we compete against a particular firm? How we are going to compete with our rivals? So there are many ways to compete with your organizations, with your rivals. Number one is direct competition. It is a rivalry between two companies that that similar products and services, and all these both organizations, both companies, they acknowledge each other as rivals, and they act and react to each other's strategic actions. The best example of the direct competition is McDonald's and Burger King, because they are in the same industry. And then we have the market commonality. It is the degree to which the two companies have overlapping products, services, or customers in the multiple markets. It is an inspirational statement of an organization's enduring purpose. And the last one is the resource similarity. These are the extent to which the competitors has similar amounts and kinds of resources. I hope you enjoy my lecture. Thank you for listening.